Alright. We have this little script running now that is playing a marimba sound on the Plonk and playing a little drum on the Pique. And we're using every and other to add some interesting rhythmic components to it. In this little video, we're going to look at using the delay command to add even more interesting rhythmic complexity to it that falls outside of the beats from the metronome. So the actual melody is being driven by script 1. So let's go back out and look at that. All script 1 does right now is call script 2. And in script 2, what it's doing is it's hitting the trigger, setting the modulation of the delay, of the decay, and it's setting the pitch value of it. So that means that every time we want to play another tone that has those elements to it, we can just call script 2. So let's go back here to script 1 and say, well, what if we didn't just fire off the script once, but what if we wanted to fire it off once and then a little bit after we fire it again? That's exactly the kind of thing that the delay command can do for us. So DEL for delay lets us specify a time interval in milliseconds. In this case, let's say 250. And then a colon, just like with the other commands, wait for some condition and then do something. Use the colon to separate their space and then the command we want to do. And in this case, well, we just want to run script 2 once more. And now we get this thing that's not fully within the beats like we were kind of chained to before. Now 250 is kind of an arbitrary number, so maybe we can jump out to live mode and let it do a little bit of math for us. And so in this case here, remember we had the BPM command, we're running at 124 BPM, so that's 483 milliseconds. If we want to divide this by something, let's say we wanted to use quarter notes, we can see that that's 120. But what if we want to add even more rhythmic complexity and use thirds? 161. So let's go back into our script and let's see what happens if we use 161 as our value here. Oh, 61. So that's pretty interesting, right? But the delay command can actually do even more for us. So one thing to be aware of is that when we are issuing a delay command, we might be doing that many times in our different scripts. Those delay commands actually go into a little buffer of commands that are waiting to be executed. And if you look out here in our live mode screen, you can see this little symbol lighting up. That's telling us that there are delay commands awaiting in that buffer. In general, you don't need to worry about the buffer, but it's good to know that it's there just in case something starts behaving different than you were expecting. The buffer has a max capacity of 16 delayed commands. So just be aware of that. If you're really queuing them up from a lot of different scripts, at some point you might hit that limit. And once you do hit that limit, it simply throws off the script at the end. So the first thing we can do here is, instead of just using delay, we can actually use delay to run the command more than once. And the kind of alternate delay command for that is DEL.X, delay.X. And just like before, it takes the time, but before the time, it takes the number of times you want it to do that. So in this case, I'm telling it, hey, I want you to run it twice with this amount of time after it. Let's try that. You can change it up to 3. Oh, now we suddenly go out and look. We're suddenly hitting the exact number of elements in our pattern, which means that it's now doing the exact same thing every time. While this is kind of neat and you might want to do that for some things, I kind of like things to be phasing, continuously moving in and out of it. So let me just add an element here. So now we had 5 elements, and you can suddenly hear we're back into like the phasing of every time it's running, it's doing something slightly different. Let's go back to our script. There are a couple of different versions of this. There's another one called let's see, what's it called? I think it's yeah, so there's several variants of this. Sorry, gotta look up the manual here. DEL.R, what it does is it triggers it immediately and then a number of times. So we could switch to that and then drop our first script, since we know that this is all about being as concise as possible because we have limited script space. And then we just got to change this back to 4. So now we have exactly the same as we had before. I hope this was useful. I find that the delay command is really interesting to use in your scripts, and it really allows you to do some things that breaks out of the boundaries of things running exactly on steps. And you can do some things that make this again feel more generative. Like, what if we didn't use 4 here, but instead used a random value? So let's say random value between 0 and 8. See? We still have something that has the same feel. We're still working from the same track of melodic elements, but the rhythmic complexity of how it's being played is now different. And so once you start combining this kind of thing with the things we learned in some of the other videos on this, like the probability command, you can really start to build up a very complex thing that creates a very, very long, non-repeating generative piece, all run from your teletype. And that, I think, is one of the most fun things about the teletype. I hope this was useful. As usual, leave me a comment if there's something you'd like me to go more in depth with. If I made a mistake you need me to correct, or if there's something else you would like me to take a look at sooner rather than later, just let me know in the comments as well. Thanks for watching.